Unsurprisingly, here we are again in the Charlene classroom. But today, I see you want to know how to play White Mage. Now you may be thinking, oh, I'm gonna heal up my team so good, I'm gonna make them full health all the time and nobody will ever die. Wrong! You're going to be doing damage, and nothing but that. Any healing you do will be because it is to do damage. Now that's not a meme. White Mage has some mechanics where when you heal, you will be able to do big damage later. And in all honesty, you want to avoid other heals if you can prioritize doing those. So let's just jump into White Mage's unique mechanic. White Mage has a Lily meter. Every 20 seconds in combat, you will generate a Lily up to a maximum of 3. After spending 3 of these lilies on heals, you will get the Blood Lily. And the Blood Lily, ooh-wee, that's where the money's at. That's the big move. However, before we get into that, we should go over the actual Lily heals themselves. Your single target Lily heal is called Afflatus Solace. This is an 800 potency cure on a single target. It is instant cast, so you can move while doing it, and you pretty much just want to use this whenever a tank or DPS get clipped by something and you need to heal them. Your AoE heal is Afflatus Rapture. It is a 400 potency heal on everybody around you, and also you can move while doing it. You pretty much want to do this whenever your team takes a raid wide or any damaging mechanic that hits everybody. Now, after you've done any 3 of those heals, you get access to Afflatus Misery, and the only misery being felt is by the enemy. This move's incredible. Afflatus Misery is an instant cast 1240 potency GCD that will hit enemies in an AoE for 620. That is an obscene amount of damage. But outside of that, you may be wondering why it has the funny 1240 number there. Well, I'll explain that in a little bit. With the Lily moves out of the way, let's talk about the meat of the content. The damage GCDs. For a couple years now, White Mages have been known as Glare Mages, because that is the button that you will be pressing every 2.5 seconds. This is a 310 potency GCD that you will be making sure to spam. Now it's time to do some math. You may notice that 4 glares is in fact the same potency as 1 Afflatus Misery. And you might have noticed that it takes 4 GCDs to get Afflatus Misery out. Because of this, it is in fact damage neutral to do GCD Lily healing and then Afflatus Misery, or just doing 4 glares. Thanks to the recent changes on White Mage, you should be doing your Lily heals whenever they are up. You shouldn't be spamming them, but you should be using them either for movement or for healing, and make sure not to overcap your lilies. There are 2 reasons for this. While you are damage neutral, you actually save mana by doing your Lily heals. Your Lily heals effectively save you the 400 MP that you would have spent on Glare. Now, if you have good mana management, you don't really need to do this, but it's reason number 2 that we need to do this. That reason is called 2-minute bursts. Every minute you can get a Blood Lily, and while the odd minute Lily is just going to be damage neutral, if you save the 2-minute Lily for when all the raid buffs are out, that is essentially doing 4 glares in 1 GCD window in raid buffs. That's just shoving 3 extra glares at the start of the burst window, which is just a lot of damage. And for an extra case that is fight dependent, if the boss ever goes untargetable or you're in combat but you can't do anything, just use your Lily heals if you know you aren't going to use them. Using 3 of those and then getting a Blood Lily when you couldn't have done anything else means you are going positive on DPS instead of just neutral. Well, with the math out of the way, let's move on to the next thing. Your dot, or damage over time move, is called Dia. This does 60 potency over 30 seconds, meaning it's a 600 potency dot, but it also has an initial hit of 60, so it's 660 in total. Just make sure to apply this every 30 seconds. And our last GCD is Holy. This is a 150 potency attack to all enemies around you, however, it does have a cast time. A cast time that is the same as the recast time, meaning that it takes a hot second for it to come out. It takes even just a little bit longer too because of the way the animation works. But it has a bonus effect as well. It has a stun that lasts for 4 seconds, and every time that the stun works, its duration is cut in half, meaning that you get 7 seconds of stun total. 7 seconds of the enemy not attacking is better than any heal you could possibly do. Make sure that you are spamming this in dungeons. However, this is only a gain on 3 or more enemies. You do want to use the stun if there are 2 enemies, but once the stun is resisted, you can go back to single target. And that's how you play White Mage. You just spam glare and you do all of your lily things and it just works out. Wait, hold on. There's like 18 more actions I still have to go over. I thought that was it. Fine, let's take a look at this first one. Cure! Now that's a staple right there. And just like Final Fantasies, it's garbage after the early game. Never use this. It is worth noting that this is the only GCD heal that you can weave with, except you will never use it for that reason. Also, the passive on this is also garbage. Do not even worry about it. Next up is Cure 2. This is a 800 potency cure with a cast time, but this is pretty much just if you don't have an Afflatus Solace available, use this. As for your last single target GCD heal, you have Regen. It is a 250 potency over 18 seconds, meaning you have 6 ticks of it, and it will do a total of 1500 over the duration. This is pretty much your lifeline when you're going through dungeons. You just slap this on the main tank and it's free real estate. It's pretty good. However, I do find it has limited use in group content just because there are so many people that need to be healed, and spending 1 GCD on it is really not worth it. Now for our group heals, we have Cure 3. This is a 600 potency cure in kind of a small range around whoever is being targeted. If you are targeting the enemy, it will be around you. This is pretty much your go-to big burst in group healing, but do keep in mind it has an extremely large mana cost, so you cannot spam this, but you usually don't have to. And sometimes you may be targeting someone that is too far away from everybody to give the benefit of the group heal. You have to be careful who you're targeting with this. Our next cure is Medica. This is pretty much the exact same as Afflatus Rapture, being a 400 potency cure, but with all the downsides of a cast time and mana cost. It also has slightly less range than Afflatus Rapture, but it does have more than Cure 3, so it is better when people are more spread out if you don't have an Afflatus Lily ready, but you should probably stick to Cure 3 if everyone is bundled up. And our final GCD heal is Medica 2. This is a 250 potency cure with a 150 potency regen for 5 ticks. That is 1000 potency in total. This is honestly a pretty good tool to use whenever you're really feeling like it. Obviously don't do 2 in a row, that is counterintuitive. Do not do another one until the regen has fallen off. But this can pretty much keep people alive through a mechanic or 2 depending on how much damage goes out. Especially if you couple it with bonus heals on top, like Afflatus Solace or Cure 3. But of course don't overheal, you don't want to heal them up to full after casting Medica 2, it would just be a waste of the Medica 2 regen. However, if you know that they're going to take a big hit, and the regen is still ticking, but they're not at a high enough health, that's where you do the extra heals. And of course, just use Swift Cast Raise in case anybody dies, because you were too busy being a Glare Mage. And before we get into off-global heals, we have one ability that will help you with all of these GCD heals should you have to use them. The ability is Thin Air. This is on a 60-second cooldown, but you get 2 charges of it. Basically, whenever you use this, your next mana-using ability will cost 0 mana. This of course has excellent value on all of those GCD heals, as they're roughly 1000 mana, and Raise. Now you can use this on Glare or Dio or Holy Right, but I wouldn't use more than 1 charge. You kind of always want to keep 1 charge in the pocket for Raise in case anything happens, or if you're going to do Medica, Medica 2, Cure, all those. Now let's go over the off-global healing, but we're going to start with a weird one first. Plenary Indulgence is basically a modifier to those GCD heals I mentioned earlier that will do an additional heal. You may not count it as an off-global heal, but it heals, so I'm putting it here. Whenever you cast Medica, Medica 2, Cure 3, or Afflatus Rapture, that's all of your group heals, you will do an additional 200 potency on top of it. The additional heal can crit, so you can be lucky with that sometimes. This turns all your group heals except Cure 3 into Cure 3, and it turns Cure 3 into a group Cure 2, so it is pretty good. However, it does boost the initial heal on Medica 2, but it does nothing to affect the regens, but either way, it's still pretty good. I like to do this when I know that the extra 200 potency would help smooth things over, or when there is a mechanic that requires you to be healed to full really fast. This will work wonders with like 2 Cure 3s, everybody will be full health pretty fast. Now for probably the coolest off global you have, we have a size. I say it's cool just because it does damage, heal, and restore some mana all at the same time. Pretty much just use the size on cooldown. It's more for the damage and the mana gain as opposed to the healing, but if it does line up with the healing, that's pretty nice. Next up we have Asylum. This is a ground targeted ability, so it can be a little finicky, but it is a regen that does a good amount. This is an 800 potency regen in total, but because of the way ground targeted abilities work, you do get an extra 100 when you place it, so it is 900 in total. And lastly, this does increase the healing everyone inside of it receives by 10%, so if you need to heal up fast, you can also place this and boost your healing. For our last group ability, we have Liturgy of the Bell, though I believe it's usually called Lily Bell for short. This does have a lengthy cooldown of 3 minutes, so you can't really use it too much in encounters, but it is really good. This massive wall of text for an ability basically says that you place down a lily somewhere. It is ground targeted, so again it's a little finicky, and every time you get hurt, you will release an explosion from the lily that will heal 400 potency. This can occur up to 5 times because it does have 5 stacks. However, once the 15-second duration ends, all remaining stacks will explode for half the potency, for 200 each. Best case scenario, you've used this on a multi-stack like in the Endwalker EX Trials 1 and 2, and you get a full 2000 potency from it. Or, worst case scenario, you'd basically get an entire Medica 2's worth of healing instantly. And a nice change they've made is that it can be detonated manually if you repress the button. This is really good for the one scenario in which being hit would kill you before the Lily Bell would heal you, so make sure to do that when that happens. Now we're going to talk about off-global single target heals. You only have 2 of these, and the first one is going to be Tetragrammaton, normally Tetra for short. This is a 700 potency cure on a minute-long cooldown that you do on a single target. This doesn't have too many use cases outside of somebody who got clipped by something that needs to be healed up fast, or by a tank who just took a tank buster, but it's still nice. And we have Benediction. This is just a 100% HP full heal. It will not heal what is missing, it will heal their entire health bar, even if they are at full health. The best cases for this are obviously when somebody gets raised, when a tank takes a tank buster, and of course, Dark Knight's Living Dead is always going to be used with this if they cannot heal it themselves. This is on a lengthy 3-minute cooldown, and I do kind of just save this for raises, but if you know people aren't going to die, you can just use this as another Tetra heal. Now, while this isn't a heal per se, we do have Divine Benison. This is a 500 potency shield on a 30-second cooldown that you can have 2 charges of. This, of course, is really good as a shield to put on somebody before they take damage, but you can also kind of use it as a makeshift, weavable Cure 1. Obviously you aren't restoring the health, but if it would keep them alive, it basically counts as healing. Now we have the off-globals that I really didn't have other spots for, but these next 2 are going to be about mitigation. The first one is Aqua Veil. This is on a minute cooldown and will give one target a 15% mit, that is a lot, for 8 seconds. This should pretty much just be used on tanks when they take a tank buster, or somebody who has a vulnerability stack, or too many of them, gets targeted by something and they may not survive it. And for the last mit we have Temperance. This will reduce damage by 10% to pretty much everybody around you in a large 30 yalm radius, but it will also boost your healing GCD, i.e. lilies, cures, medicas, by 20%. This is extremely good for hard-hitting raid wides because you'll be able to heal them up fast afterwards, but it is on kind of a lengthy 2-minute cooldown, so you can't use it for everything. And our final ability, that is probably more important than all these others, but I lack the foresight to put it in the right spot, is Presence of Mind. Presence of Mind is your 2-minute raid buff that you want to throw out in conjunction with other raid buffs. This decreases your spell cast time, recast time, and auto attack delay by 20%. The auto attack portion of that doesn't really matter, but the spell cast time and recast time is important. Basically, if you have a 2.5 GCD time, this will reduce it to 2 seconds, meaning that in a regular window of 4 GCDs you would be able to get in a 5th one. This is pretty much just used for spamming glare, however this will make all your other heals have a faster cast and recast time as well. Do be advised that it is incredibly difficult to weave while you are doing Presence of Mind. Because of the way weaving works, you have to press your weave button immediately and do not hesitate to do so, lest you clip your GCD. There you go, that's all of White Mage's abilities. Pretty much the core gameplay of White Mage is to try and use your Lily heals as much as possible, since they are not a loss in DPS. Now don't let anyone tell you that you can't do a Medica 2 every now and then, but you should really try and do the Lily heals over others. Like I said throughout the video, you've got a lot of tools, but some of them feel kind of redundant or more like punishments for not using other resources correctly. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a Lily Medica 2 or regen. It just seems like the natural course of things. And of course, when you're not doing healing, just make sure to spam that glare. Become the glare mage stereotype that everybody loves. Except actually heal people when they need to. And with that, thanks so much for watching. See you next time. The only joke here is that they peaked on White Mage fashion design back in Stormblood.